Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I-24 News, where we provide a daily view on world markets and the global economy. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Well, today we'll take a special look at the emerging cyber innovation wave in the startup nation. Earlier this summer, we traveled to Israel's desert metropolis, Beersheba, where a hub of cyber tech innovation is currently emerging, already attracting considerable international interest. Let's watch. In the middle of Israel's Negev desert, an oasis of cybersecurity innovation is blossoming. A number of factors, both local and global, have encouraged the development of this cyber tech center in Israel's largest southern city, Beersheba. A substantial transfer of IDF facilities to this desert hub has already attracted multinationals as they look to stay near the Army's tech-savvy workforce. Ben-Gurion University's fresh pool of talent and the foresight of some local pioneers are also reasons.
What we've seen about 4 years ago is that there is a whole new wave of cyber attacks coming to hit many of the federal agencies as well as the corporations out there. And we thought that's an excellent ecosystem to create a whole new set of companies in that space.
Israeli venture capital firm JVP first opened its Beersheba Cyber Labs office 2 years ago, well before other big names started to take notice of Israel's southern capital. Even a few years ago, camels were a common sight here, along stretches of dusty dirt roads, which now are buffered by shiny new centers filled with IT whizzes, defense buffs, and cyber innovators. Ronen Yehoshua, the CEO of Morphosec, works in the field of polymorphic defense, which he says would have prevented security breaches on companies like Target and Office Depot.
Hackers all the time improve their techniques. They build new types of attacks. The security measures try to understand what are those techniques. They build new mechanisms in order to defend against them, and the attackers learn them and again build a new type of attacks in order to overcome them. So this is a never-ending cycle.
Coronet specializes in the mobile phone and Wi-Fi space.
Everybody protects against the upper levels, the application operating system levels, and nobody is focusing on that world. And wherever there is a world that is unfocused, that's where the attackers go.
Still, Beersheba has long been an overlooked destination in Israel, locals often preferring the lush coastline with its lively nightlife. We're standing right here in the middle of the Negev desert, and all this cyber tech development that you can see right here behind me actually fits in right along with the government's plan to expand business and commerce outside of the center. Global tech companies are also fueling interest in Beersheba. EMC, Lockheed Martin, Oracle, and IBM have all opened up excellence centers here. And Beersheba is starting to see the same big exits traditionally seen in Tel Aviv. In March, eBay's PayPal bought startup Cyactiv for $65 million. With a sum like that, it's hard not to take Beersheba seriously. Also, during our trip to JVP Cyber Labs, we spoke with Gadi Tirosh more extensively. He's the managing partner at the Israeli Venture Capital Fund. Well, now we are joined by Gadi Tirosh. He is the managing partner at JVP. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for visiting us today at the JVP Beersheba Excellence Centers for Cyber.
When was it that you first got involved in cybersecurity?
JVP was established more than 20 years ago, and we invested in cyber when it was still called IT security, and we had some very good outcomes in that sector. What we've seen about 4 years ago is that there is a whole new wave of cyber attacks coming to hit many of the federal agencies as well as the corporations out there. And we realized that for this new wave of attacks, you need new kind of solutions. And we thought that's an excellent ecosystem to create a whole new set of companies in that space.
Well, JVP is a big player here in Israel when it comes to cybersecurity. How did it get recognition on the world stage?
We identified that there is a new category in the world of cyber, protecting the organization from within. Okay, and we realize that CyberArk can be the leader of that category. And that's where you get winners in the public market. If you have a story that the public can understand, and you have a company that can be a leader in a new category that it created, which is what happened with CyberArk, then you see the performance as it's reflected in the public markets right now.
What exactly stood out to you about CyberArk? Why did you know that it was going to be a successful company?
So I think in the case of CyberArk, once again, the company had very strong financials, very good growth rate, coupled with profitability that was built into the company from day one. So those aspects were really appreciated in the public market, and we realized that if we position it correctly, that could be a very successful outcome in an IPO market.
Describe to us the difference between backing early-stage companies as well as more mature companies.
So as you said, we invest in later stage opportunities, such as CyberArk and other companies in cyber, as well as very young company in the space. I think that, by the way, having companies like CyberArk and other companies that went public really create a lot of ambition for the early stage companies to shoot for the sky and not being just sold at early stage to larger companies. There is a lot of things that are common working with those two stages. Both of them, JVP takes very major positions in the company. We are a very involved investor, and we provide a lot of support and guidance and advice. The difference is, at early stage, we usually help the founders and the management team to establish their niche in the market and work with them on perfecting the go-to-market and how to approach this market. This is usually the most difficult task for an early stage company. At later stages, companies that already have revenues and you prepare them for an IPO, it's a different type of work, it's different type of advice, but still very involved through a very intimate dialogue with the management and the founder team.
Describe to us a bit, what is the process like in terms of negotiating the value of an exit?
So first of all, to have a successful negotiation on an exit, once you get an offer from one of these technology companies, you need to make sure that you have competition on the deal. In order to do that, you need to work on that environment early on, starting from 2 years and 3 years before that exit event that you're planning for. And you do that by actually establishing business development relationships with those potential acquirers. So what we guide our early stage companies to do is to open up partnerships with those companies, have those large companies a chance to know you better, okay? And then once you get an offer from one of them, you're at the best position to go and negotiate this offer with additional bidders and therefore maximize the price.
Well, now for further perspective on Israel's cyber tech development, we are joined on set by Achiad Alter, manager of the cybersecurity sector, Israel Export Institute. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We very much appreciate it. Well, cyber is a relatively new sector here within the high-tech environment in the startup nation, and yet we're seeing this high number of rounds of investment coming in. What's behind that?
I'm not sure it's relatively new, but it's relatively new in the news. We had a lot of companies, or not a lot, we had a lot of people working in this industry. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we see uprising interest in the world with investors and also with companies that are interested in protecting themselves against all kinds of threats in the cyber area.
What are some of the more successful exits that we've seen coming from Israel?
You're talking about companies?
Yes.
First of all, we have Checkpoint, which is our leading company. After, we've got some other companies that are still considered as small or medium companies. And I'm trying to get to be like Checkpoint, but most of them are not getting to those sizes because they're being bought during the way.
Right, like Cyactive, right? That was bought by PayPal.
There's a lot of example like Cyactive, which is a very good example. But we've got all kind of company. PayPal bought this company. We got other example of companies that bought, even Checkpoint itself bought some innovative companies in this sector.
All right, so they're getting scooped up here before they even get a chance with Google or the big tech giants in the States.
Exactly.
Well, actually, speaking of these companies, a few years ago you sponsored this competition and you chose BioCatch. It got the top honors there, and we actually did a report on them. Let's take a look. Identity theft remains a worry for consumers and retailers alike across the globe. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission recorded over 330,000 identity theft complaints in 2014. Making it the #1 consumer complaint. And fraud as a whole costs Americans some $1.7 billion annually. In the UK, fraud prevention agency CFAS noted that in the first 3 months of 2015, more than 80% of all attempted identity theft was carried out or attempted online. And the advent of mobile technology makes sensitive data even more vulnerable, especially since now we do so much more with our mobile devices, even banking. Israeli startup BioCatch is helping a number of U.S. banks as part of its partnership with Early Warning to protect your banking information. Using the emerging field of behavioral analytics and biometrics, BioCatch is able to measure different user experiences against mobile hackers and fraudsters.
There's the way that you interact with a specific application for a bank or for an e-commerce site, and that combination yields a lot of very rich data that can be collected and measured and compared against a broader population of people using the same application on different devices, of course. If, in fact, something changes, you've left your workstation, you've put your phone down, the session is still alive, but somebody else comes and continues that session, we'll be able to tell the difference. So that continuous authentication process is very helpful.
Behavioral analytics is an emerging field commonly employed by corporations to monitor employees. However, the same tools can be used to monitor fraud. By the year 2020, biometrics will be the main authorization of banking identity. This according to Good Intelligence. Some of the scenarios where biometrics could be used are withdrawing cash with an ATM, proving identity when contacting a bank by phone, and authenticating via banking app through fingerprint. Good also predicts that as soon as 2017, more than 1 billion users will be accessing banking services through biometric systems. Of all the global banking markets, the UK is perhaps the most aggressive when it comes to investing in fraud technology, says BioCatch CEO Ron Moritz.
Banks in the UK are in fact more aggressive and more forward-thinking in embracing technology and are delivering technology services faster, financial technology services faster, to their customers than anywhere else in the world. So it's actually very exciting to work with the UK banks because we're doing some work in the UK that hasn't even begun to happen in the United States.
Well, what stood out to you about this company?
I think that they are a very innovative company, a very good example of a company that started out as a startup and now is catching up and started to get a lot of feedback from all kinds of financial institutes around the world, especially from the States, which is the largest market of the Israeli companies. They are aiming to this market and they get a lot of, they're trying to get a lot of POC in order to get to be not a startup and to build up the company as they can.
Well, this is interesting here because this is in the banking sector, but what other areas, of course, can be met, the needs of the government and perhaps other areas? Where do you think this is going to be the most demand, essentially?
Okay. It's not only the banking, it's all the financial institute, but this is only one vertical. I think we've have an advantage in another 2 or 3 verticals, the governmental and the defense ones, because we have a lot of experience from the army. So we have a lot to contribute to this vertical.
Right. There is a lot of need. There's a high demand for protection from governments trying to hack into other people's or governments' federal systems. We just saw that with the states here. So this is just not only the private sector that we're dealing with.
Of course, but we're not talking about the offensive side, only about the defense side.
Right.
We can talk also about the intelligence that the states are trying to allocate from all kind of data, that the big data that there is all over the web. Another vertical I think is a very important one is the critical infrastructure. It's all the electricity, water, and stuff like that. That even though it's not considered as money and you cannot lose money, but if we have a blackout for a day or two in this heat, like in Tel Aviv, it could be very terrible and even problematic to life.
Right, absolutely. In fact, at JVP at the Cyber Labs, we spoke with a startup there, SCADAfence, and they tackle this very issue.
This is one of the innovative companies in this field. Very interesting one. They have 2 co-founders that thought about this idea and started talking with all the industry. They went to the electricity company, to the water company. They went to the ports, airports, and the seaports, and try to understand what exactly is the threat that they are dealing with, and they try to build a solution that will help prevent the next problem.
Well, thank you so much for coming to our studio today. Very much appreciated. That concludes our special coverage here on cybersecurity. Be sure to watch us every day from the Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Thank you very much for watching.